So let's just talk briefly the idea of integers. We know we have our whole numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Integers would just be those numbers plus the opposites, okay, negative numbers. So we have our negative integers, -1, -2, -3, -4. 0 is considered neither positive nor negative. So see on the right side of the number line here, we've got our positive integers. Left side is our negative integers. Okay, so a number line is a good way to think about adding, in this case, adding integers together. So if we take a standard number line, for example, kind of think of adding as a movement. Okay, so let's say, for example, we wanted to add, let's say, something with like signs. So we already know, like if I add 2 positive integers, right, that we're going to end up at 3. It's like going right 2 spots and then right 1 more spot. So we end up at +3. Okay, the same idea is going to be true if we want to add 2 negatives together. Okay, let's say, for example, instead of positives, let me change those to negatives. So, for example, let's say I had -2 plus -1. -2 plus -1. Okay, and I'm just going to use parentheses around my second negative just to separate the number. It doesn't mean times or anything like that. It's just a way to kind of visually separate it, so you don't have a plus and a minus sign next to each other. So again, we want to think of this just as movements on a number line. So again, you always want to start at 0, right? So I started at -2. Okay, and then from that point, if I add negative, right, I'm going to go left 1. Okay, and I'd end up at -3. Okay, a lot of scenarios you could come up with to kind of model that. You spend $2, spend $1, total you spend $3. You lose 2 pounds, lose another pound, you've lost 3 pounds. Okay, so when we're adding negatives, okay, we're doing movements to the left on the number line. Now, obviously, we're not going to carry a number line around with us. So we want to be able to do these without the aid of a number line. Okay, so let's talk about that next. Okay, so the pattern that we can see here is that what we're really doing when I add 2 negatives together, -4 plus -5, is what I'm really doing is just adding 4 plus 5 and making it negative. Okay, so adding 2 negative numbers, really simple. We just want to think of it as their positive numbers. Okay, so like -7 plus -12. All right, 7 movements to the left, 12 movements to the left. That's a total of 19 movements to the left. Okay, so you add a negative and a negative together, you're going to get a negative. It's just like add the positive form of the number, make the number negative at the end. Okay, so adding 2 negatives, pretty simple. Now, if we add a negative and a positive, okay, that gets a tad bit trickier. Let's go back to our number line here. Let me get rid of these. So if I want to add a negative and a positive, it gets a little bit trickier. All right, so let's say I wanted to add, for example, a -5 plus a +3. So in terms of my movements on the number line, so again, I started 0, -5 would take me to here. Right, take me to -5, but then I want to do a +3, and we know positive, we're going to move to the right, just like if I was doing 2 plus 3, I'd go 2 right, 3 right. So if I want to add 3, I'd go 3 to the right there, and I'd end up at -2. Okay, so a little bit different. We don't just go 5 plus 3 is 8 like we would if it's 2 positives or 2 negatives. We have a different pattern going on. Let's look at one more, and then we'll talk about the pattern. Let's say we wanted to do, let's make the first number 3, the second number -2. Okay, again, let's model that with the number line. So our first one, we want to start out at +3. So we're going to move, let's get red here, we're going to move 3 to the right. Okay, and we add a negative, so adding a negative is going to take us to the left. Okay, and we end up at +3. 1. Okay. Again, you can think of models in real life of this. You spend $5 and then earn $3. You have $2 less than you started. You gain 3 pounds, lose 2 pounds. You have 1 more pound than you started. You have lose 5 Instagram followers and gain 3. You're 2 less than you started with. So lots of different models you can use, and that's a good strategy. If you get a little bit stuck thinking about that, think of a real life scenario. Now let's analyze our patterns here. Okay. Because we've got 2 situations. Situation where we're going to add 2 of the same sign, okay, 2 negatives in this case. So let's just rewrite a problem. Look at the pattern. -3 plus -2 equals -5. -4 plus -6 equals -10. Right? So again, our pattern is we are just adding the positive form of the number. Answer is going to be a negative number. Okay, we have a saying that kind of helps us, and that saying is same sign, sum. Okay, same sign, sum. All right, which simply means we're going to add those numbers together. Okay, add their absolute values, and then it's just going to be negative. Okay, 2 negatives add together make a negative, 2 positives add together make a positive. Okay, same sign, sum. All right, if we want to add different numbers together, okay, -4 plus 3, 5 plus -2, right? Notice we have different signs. So mathematically, okay, what we're doing is, right, if we want to end up at -1, right, 4 to the left, 3 to the right, we'd be at -1 on a number line. Okay, what do we do with 4 and 3 to get 1? We subtract. So mathematically, we want to take the larger absolute value, which in this case would be 4, minus the smaller absolute value, 5 minus 2, right, gets us 3. Okay, there's our different signs. Difference, we're finding the difference of the absolute values. Okay, and once we do that, right, then we have to figure out why is 1 negative, why is 1 positive. Well, if we look at our first example and we think about which one has the larger absolute value, right, the negative does. Okay, another way to think about that, what do we have more of? Do I have more negatives or more positives? If I have more negatives, I'm going to move further along the negative line than toward the positive. It's still going to be on the negative side of the number line. Okay, in my second example, I have more positives than I do negatives. Okay, so my answer stays positive. Let me fix this first one here. Okay, so we can see the first example, -4 plus 3 is -1. So I guess I didn't need to do that, did I? Okay, and the second one, 5 plus -2 is +3. Okay, so we want to do different signs, find the difference. So we realize we have a positive and a negative, subtract absolute values. Okay, and then to see which sign we use for our answer, we just look at the one with the larger absolute value, or what do we have more of? Do I have more negatives? Do I have more positives? And then we use that as a sign of our answer. Okay, so same sign, sum, different sign, difference. Let's go ahead and try a few. Okay, so I'll put the problems on. Why don't you pause the video, give them a try, and then we'll come back and go over the answers. Okay, so let's do problem number 1, -4 plus 7. Problem number 2, -6 plus -8. And problem number 3, 5 plus -12. So again, go ahead and pause the video, give these a try, and then play the video again. We'll go over the answer. All right, so number 1, okay, we've got different signs. So our saying is different signs, find the difference, right? So we want to think on this. Think 7 minus 4, right? And that's going to be 3. And then we look, we have more positives, right? That is a larger absolute value, more positives than negatives. So our answer is going to stay +3. Okay, number 2, same sign, sum. So I want to think add absolute values. 6 plus 8 gives me 14, right? And a negative plus a negative is always going to end up as a negative. Right, again, think of that number line movement. You can't go left, left, and end up to the right. So -14. Okay, and last one, number 3 there, different signs. We find the difference. So I want to think 12 minus 5, which gives me 7. And then I look, do I have more positives or more negatives? Well, in this case, I have 12 negatives, 5 positives. So I have more negatives. My answer is going to be a negative 7. Okay, so just kind of help you remember, same sign sum, different sign difference. Kind of use that as you progress. We'll work a little bit with using that number line, but you want to get to a point where you can do that without a number line, and those things help you remember that.